because this might be the inner chronicle of what we are, and we have to articulate ourselves, otherwise we would be cows in a field.
Welcome to Cows in the Field. This is a show in which we discuss philosophical themes in popular films. My name is Justin.
I'm Laura.
And today we're hitting the jacuzzi and going back to 1986. It's Hot Tub Time Machine.
Guys, come look at this. You don't think it's a little weird, a bunch of guys just piling up in a big bathtub together?
It's called male bonding, okay? Haven't you even seen Wild Hogs? Ready for the Saturday night. Watch out, here I come.
What the hell happened last night?
Is there some kind of retro thing going on this weekend?
There's something going on in here. Dude is rocking a cassette player. Leg warmers.
I'm sure there's a good explanation for all this.
Jerry girl! Excuse me, miss. What color is Michael Jackson?
Black?
Winter Fest 86!
I don't understand how we back in time.
I'm so scared.
Must be some kind of hot tub time machine.
And welcoming to the show, we have Mitchell Beaupre. Mitchell is a senior editor at Letterbox'd, and his writing on film has appeared in many places, such as Paste, Little White Lies, and The Film Stage. Welcome to Cows in the Field, Mitchell.
Thank you so much for having me. I love anytime I get invited to talk about the philosophical themes of Hot Tub Time Machine. I'm raring to go.
Very serious in the house today.
I should caution the audience that I have prepped nothing on the philosophy of the time travel in this film, although we can get into it because it is weird. It's very similar, I think, to the Francis Ford Coppola film Peggy Sue Got Married, because it's a similar kind of like when you go back in time, you like inhabit your previous self. And you know, and which is weird, but this obviously has branching time and interesting things. We can't talk about that, but we've talked about lots of time travel. We don't need to get into that. There's a lot to talk about with this film. First thing we should do, though, is I kind of want to situate ourselves. So this movie came out in 2010, and Mitchell, where were you in 2010? Did you see the film in theaters? And last question, just to kick things off, what brings you back to it today?
Yeah, great question. I did see it in theaters. I kind of saw it in theaters on a little bit of a lark. Funnily enough, and part of I think why I've always connected with the movie in like an emotional way is I saw it. I was a couple years after I graduated high school. I didn't really have a lot of friends in high school. And the two people that I was kind of close with were two guys that were like a year ahead of me in school. So when they graduated, I was kind of, shit out of luck just on my own for like my final year. And one of them was moving. So I live in Delaware. I was still living in Delaware at that time when the movie came out. And one of them was moving to Savannah, Georgia. And so it was like a day or two before he moved, and so it was the three of us, like our last time like getting to spend this like bonding moment together. And so we just wanted to see like any movie. I mean, I think it came out in like February or March, and so there wasn't a ton of options out there, and we were just like, let's go see that. It sounds stupid and fun, like it'll be a nice time. And yeah, the movie being so much about male friends losing touch with each other, like drifting away, life, just kind of getting the best of you. It's like seeing that when thinking of like my friend about to move, who like I've only seen since then in the last 14 years, I've seen once. Like I went down to Savannah once and like hung out with him, and like I haven't seen the other friend who lives here. Like we're not in touch anymore. Like we don't see it. So it's like it occupies this weird space for me of like, I love the movie just like straight up, but I have such a weird connection to it where the ideas in it are directly related to my experience of watching it. And so I think that's a real reason why it's rooted in me so strongly.
Yeah, I mean, I totally get that. I mean, it's hard to maintain friendships as you change as a person, and that's a big part of the movie and what is some of the things it's getting at. Laura, I mean, had you ever seen this movie before?
I had seen it. I don't remember when I first saw it. I know I did not see it in theaters, and I feel like I saw it in a very suboptimal, like like on a laptop or something. Like
Oh, I
not a
see.
good
Yeah.
when I first saw it. I think I probably saw it pretty soon after it came out, but not in theaters and not in the best way. So this is my first time revisiting it, and close to 15 years.
I'm
maybe.
pretty sure I saw this in theaters in New Haven.
Yeah?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure I saw it in theaters. Or at least around the time it came out and it was in New Haven.
That was like the summer I graduated college.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I don't know. I was kicking around.
We were together.
Yeah.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah.
Okay. This is great.
We were dating.
Wow.
Correct. But we did not see it together.
No.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Interesting twist.
Yeah, twist. It is one of these things that, I found, I mean, Mitchell, do you ever feel like the characters, like you want to go back to that time? Because I kind of feel a certain degree of, like, I've never gone to any of my high school reunions. I've never gone to my college reunions either, for that matter. But I don't have
You don't like to
very
reunion?
strong impulse to go back to high school, which is a time I have a lot of mixed feelings about. I mean, I love the friends that I made in high school, some of whom I'm still friends with. But I'm such a different person. I mean, at least I feel like I'm a different person. Maybe they would think I'm the same person, but I feel very different. And I feel like I found a group of people that I'm in some ways that are more suited to just who I am, that it's sort of like I don't have the desire to go back. Do you feel that way? Like you want to go back to that time?
No, yeah, I'm very similar to you. I like, as you can imagine, the fact that I just said I had two friends in high school. Like I did not have a very good high school time. A queer person, like growing up in Delaware, like going to high school, it was not like the best environment for me, like to discover who I am to a degree. Like I didn't even realize like I was queer until I was like 22, because of just the environment being raised in that. And so watching movies about like nostalgia for the simpler times of high school, even like watching something like Dazed and Confused, which is a little bit like murkier of how it like portrays it. There is like that real nostalgia for those times. I don't have any of that. But I do think that there is something that this movie gets to where it's like when you're that young, there's so much like possibility and hope for like the things that you could achieve. And for these guys, like they go back to those places where they're like, oh, if I just made this one, change in my life, I wouldn't be in this like rut that I am now. Like I can go back to where I had that opportunity to do something. And they realize like they were just as miserable back then. Like they made stupid decisions because they were stupid, teenagers. And so I think that this movie does kind of hit on that idea of like, in a lot of ways, we don't evolve as much as we have like thought that we have. And I think that's interesting. I'm not friends with anybody that I knew. I can't even tell you the last time that I like spoke to somebody that I went to high school with. Which is, I mean, for the better for me personally.
I mean, I think it's partly because I don't know about you, Laura, but maybe Mitchell and I are both in better situations now. I mean, we're just more fully realized. Fine, fair enough. Yeah. Well, so maybe this movie is speaking to you because I think the thing is
I'm just kidding.
For many people, you could just read this movie however you want. You could just say, look, it's just that moment in time that you thought you were at your best, and you want to get back to that moment and sort of relish it. And as Mitchell, you were saying, maybe change a few things so that you don't go off on a track you find that led you to somewhere worse. And there is something very appealing about that.
Yeah. I don't think I was my best version of myself at all when I was in high school, but I've been thinking a lot about this because I went back. My parents moved. I'm from the state that I grew up in. It's not my childhood home, but like they had all the stuff, like, 36 years worth of stuff. And they were like, come get your stuff. So I went back and like really did a deep dive, and it was fun to go back and like look at the sort of paraphernalia of my childhood and my high school years. And, I was maybe the hottest I ever was when I was 18. The collagen and the metabolism, like, good Lord, my hair was so shiny. I'm just looking at these pictures like, goodness gracious. I maybe am nostalgic for that. But no, you couldn't pay me to go back to be 18 ever again. But on the other hand, do you feel like you were the most alive that you've ever been for better or for worse when you were a teenager. The
No,
hormones are raging. The highs are so high and
Yeah.
the lows are so low.
But I think there is a moment somewhere along that line of your adolescent development, which might be for many of us, it's a bit more stunted because we don't fully, come out of adolescence these days until you're like mid-20s, basically.
Yeah, I'm still working on mine.
Yeah, exactly. But for me, graduate school was that period of time. There was like the first 2 years of grad school was really right before I met you, and then we like locked it down, and then I became a husk of myself.
Yeah.
But
you're really relating to like Nick. You're like, if I hadn't married this lady, like,
yeah, exactly.
I would have realized all my dreams.
Yeah, I would have been a professional musician, and no, but like there is, I can feel what you're saying is like there's this moment like when you're sort of the most in a way free in your life, and for me it was like the first years of grad school. But Mitchell, was that? I mean, maybe that moment is free now for you, but was there a moment like that for you somewhere in the past?
Yeah, I think that's actually a really smart way to put it. Yeah, for me, it was like kind of my early 20s when I was like that era of like I could get drunk I could drink,
Yes.
until 4 a.m. every night, go to work at 7 and like be totally fine. And like now I couldn't, I can barely stay awake past 1. Like it's definitely a period where there always, I think, is a period, even for me, like it wasn't, high school. It was definitely a bit later where I like finally came out of my shell and was like, discovering who I am and everything, and like having more of that like getting, speaking of like the hottest that I've ever been, like getting more attention from people,
Right. Yes.
in that kind of way, and like how like weird and exciting and everything that was, and like all the mistakes that go along with that and everything that I certainly wouldn't make now, but there was something very alive about being in that period of your life where like you genuinely don't know what you're going to get up to, like when you wake up in the morning, like how the night's going to end. Whereas now I have a very regimented plan of how my entire month is about to be, moving forward.
Yeah, you had to
You got
schedule
your sleep
podcast
hygiene.
records.
Yeah, I'm eating my magnesium so I can get a good night's sleep.
I think that's a good way to put it, though. Part of it is like the ability to, the youth, having physically the ability to do all kinds of things. But then it's also the unfetteredness of youth, which is like you just don't have that many commitments.
Yeah.
So you can do all kinds of things. And the other cool thing about that is your whole life is ahead of you, right? There's that phrase, which allows, that means there's lots of things you could do. You could change paths at that point and it wouldn't be that big of a deal. Like you're 23, I'm on track to be a lawyer, but I could just change paths and it wouldn't be the end of the world. I haven't accumulated that much debt yet, et cetera. But then when you're 35, when you're 40, you've already invested a lot in your career. You've undertaken a bunch of commitments. You have kids. Changing paths is a much bigger deal. You basically have to blow up your life. You have to do something really dramatic. And I think that's terrifying. Whereas, and the desire to kind of go back to that point where all the opportunities were sort of laid out before you, or at least you thought they were, I think is quite appealing.
But here's my question though. When you were in your late teens, 20s, did you feel like the world was open to you? Or did you feel like a lot of older people were always telling you the world was open to you, but you felt an immense pressure to pick a damn path and be good at it and pick it now?
That's what you felt. I actually felt the world was open to me.
Okay, so that's just me?
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
No, I mean, I think different people have different reactions to it, but I definitely felt, and I'd be curious what you think, Mitchell, but I definitely felt like their options were kind of all there. And I mean, now it's like...
You're so trapped.
You're stuck.
You're trapped with me.
I don't know, man. Maybe coming here is a bad idea.
Yeah. If he kills himself, can we go home?
Hard to believe this is the very room we had some of the best weekends of our lives.
Really? In this room right here? How?
We were young. We had momentum. We were winning. We were best friends.
What do you mean we're best friends?
You know what I mean, man. Everybody seemed to care more. Everything seemed to matter more back then.
I mean, one of the things that's interesting to relate this to the film is that, so the guys go back in time via the malfunctioning hot tub.
And
Normal. Yeah, right. Chernobyl. And they, and at first...
That's like a Four Loko reference, right?
Probably,
Yeah. In 2010. Let's just all put our brains back to 2010.
Yeah, that's right.
Where we're all drinking Four Loko. Yes.
And they get there and what's kind of funny is that, like, although it's like, wow, in some sense it is great to go back, and now with the foreknowledge we can, maybe change things for the better and so on. But at first they think they have to do everything exactly as they did. And so in a sort of weird twist of fate, they are as saddled with the burden of responsibility as they are as adults now in the past, because now they have to just redo all of the things that they've done, where Nick has to have sex with the woman and Adam has to break up with his girlfriend, and Lou has to get beaten up by the ski guys, the ski patrol guys. Yeah. And it's so there is this like feeling that, like, well, actually, in fact, it's no different once you're back in the past. Because of course, in some sense, you were dealing with your own things then. Like, we kind of forget that when, back in the day, it feels like we didn't have any problems or cares, but we had to deal with things like school and these relationships, which felt, as we all have felt, right? They felt like overwhelmingly totalizing.
Yeah.
Like our whole world was bound up in these in these relationships that feels, large, less significant now. I'll just put, and
I know when John Cusack is writing breakup poetry, I was like,
right.
ooh, found some of that in my house in Texas. That went straight to the trash.
Shredder. You got to put it in the shredder, man. Crisscross shred that.
I found a lot of poetry. I'll tell you that.
Oh, my mom
eyes,
has
like a gypsy's lies, cut right through the night.
Now there's somebody, some other man's eyes.
Oh, tough times. But is there anyone, also, now that we're just on the Cusack thing, is there anyone who can sell that stuff better than John Cusack?
No. He's the best jilted, pissed off lover of all time.
I think that's definitely like part of the appeal of the movie too, is like this knowing, like, Cusack, they're making references to Better Off Dead. They're making references to saying, like, they're referencing the 80s movies. Crispin Glover, obviously from Back to the Future and everything. Like, even the dude who was like the bad guy in The Karate Kid is like playing the guy at the bar that Rob Corddry has, the beef with, and like the betting game. Like, I love that they're Chevy Chase, obviously, like, and it doesn't feel like stunt casting either. Like, a lot of, like, Crispin Glover in this is so good. And I remember seeing this in theaters and thinking, like, when was the last time before this that I really got to see Crispin Glover just like going full Crispin Glover, like, in a movie, and somebody utilizing him in this way. And I feel like there's a real love towards this era of filmmaking, and I think that's something that I really love about it. It doesn't feel like kitschy in the way that it does the 80s, which I feel like a lot of, like, this was like 6 or 7 years before Stranger Things came out, and I feel like after Stranger Things there's been so much like 80s pastiche stuff, and it feels really hollow to me a lot of the times in ways where it's just like the window dressing of the 80s, whereas Hot Tub Time Machine feels like a movie that genuinely could have existed in the 80s for me. You even mentioned Peggy Sue Got Married. Like, that's a heavier example of a time travel movie from the 80s. But like, I do think that the way that it approaches these themes and like the dynamics between the characters and what they're going through there, and even the humor, there is like a real wackiness to it that feels more 80s than like 2010s, like post like Apatow boom kind of era of comedy that I really enjoy.
It helps too that it has this metatextual thing with Cusack being the kind of main guy. Who's sort of, it's like John Cusack is like going back.
He's hot tub time machining, like, as his 2010 body, like, replaying all of his roles.
His roles,
the 80s.
exactly. He's going back to revisit his old roles, like Better Off Dead, in particular being the ski one
ski
and
stuff,
all that.
Yeah.
But it
Love
is
Better Off Dead.
What a good movie.
And it is brilliant. And I know Cusack was kind of instrumental in getting this going because he brought on the director or whatever. Lauren, you know some of the details here. But anyway, it makes perfect sense as a vehicle for Cusack because it allows him, we as the audience bring all of our associations with him to that character. And so it's just all of that sort of fits together really nicely. And had it been just a comedian, it doesn't land as well. It's not as authentic in some way, but like seeing Cusack just feels normal because that's how we we sort of see Cusack. I mean, I guess you can also see Cusack as high fidelity Cusack, but he's also kind of doing high fidelity Cusack here too. So.
He's a jilted lover, pissed off lover.
Yeah.
He's writing his own breakup poetry, like all of High Fidelity. Yeah, no, he's excellent at
This
that.
guy's got
And
plenty of top 5 lists somewhere.
Yeah,
for sure.
that's right.
And
that's probably why his girlfriend left him. Too many top 5 lists.
Too many top 5.
I mean, that high fidelity character, she made the right choice getting out of there.
Yes.
But and then like me, more than even the 80s ones, I was thinking about his 90s, 2000s roles too. Cause so the guy who directed it, Steve Pink, co-wrote with was as part of a writing producing team with John Cusack, and they did together High Fidelity and also Grosse Pointe Blank. And Grosse Pointe Blank, it's funny because when I was a kid, I felt like he was like 20 years out of high school, but apparently it's his 10th reunion and he's going back to his 10th reunion. He is a hitman. He feels like he can't connect with any of his class. He's really like disillusioned with his life and he thinks maybe if he goes back to his high school, he can kind of rekindle something. But he also is wondering if the woman that he left at prom was like the love of his life. Mm. You know, he's always wondering if somebody that he's not with now was the Great White Buffalo, was the key to it all, was gonna was that moment where his path could have gone another way.
It's so funny. I feel that not at all, but maybe I'm just lucky in that I found the person for me.
Yeah, you should not wonder that because at all.
But it's funny, it's just that
you don't have a Great White Buffalo.
No, because it doesn't. That sort of thing, I feel it's very foreign to me. But I recognize that for a lot of people, it resonates, and I think High Fidelity for me is the peak instance of that, where I can make sense of it, and so I can relate to the character here, kind of through his character in High Fidelity. But I do find the arc of so his character's arc, and the stuff he does with Lizzie Kaplan, I find it doesn't totally work for me. I mean, it works insofar as their metatextual thing, but I mean, of the 3 characters, Mitchell, so we've got Adam, who's kind of dealing with a kind of maybe I needed to have married this girl from high school. You've got Craig Robinson's character Nick, who's wondering whether he made the right choice to settle down with his current wife, and then Lou, Rob Corddry's character, who is, I guess, needing to find a kind of kindle. He needs to basically face the demons of not having stood up for himself, and kind of he wants to sort of rekindle his friendship with the 2 other guys. I'm trying to figure out what he really wants.
I think he needs those guys back.
I think that's the biggest thing for him is that he's just and part of it is because he's the one out of any of them who never grew up, and so they grew up and kind of branched away from him, and he's really locked into just being this same dude, wants to be wild and free and everything, and he just has this real deep abandonment issue from them and never feeling supported. So he's acting out off of that, with the suicide attempt and everything, and so for him this is his opportunity to get that support system back that he completely lost, whereas they've been they have their own issues, but they've been kind of managing on their own, almost to a degree where they've shut off other people in their lives. Adam certainly is kind of the biggest example of that. I love the and this is such a great Cusack moment where when he's explaining to Clark Duke's character Jacob, who's his nephew, that his girlfriend left, and Jacob's like, "What'd you do?" Adam's just like, "I didn't do anything." And that to me, that I don't relate to the Great White Buffalo stuff, the one that got away stuff, but this idea of just kind of not having enough strength and enough conviction in yourself to really fight for what you believe in, that it's just easier to kind of be complacent and give up. That's something that really deeply resonates with me. Uh-huh. And so in that moment, I'm I really see myself in that guy, at least in that one element of him, if not everything else.
All we did was listen to records and have sex, and she was epic. I mean, she was epic.
Yeah, man, she was hot.
And then when I broke up with her, she was so mad she practically stabbed me in the eye with a fork. Actually, she did stab me in the eye of the forehead.
She was a 1%er, man.
Yeah.
All downhill from there.
That was a big one. First love.
One that got away.
The great white buffalo. Yeah.
The great what?
Great white buffalo.
Why are you guys whispering?
Great white buffalo.
That was really helpful, you guys. Thank you.
On the topic of the friendship, which I think is a central theme of the film, and Lou is the kind of catalyst of this, because he, it is his maybe suicide attempt, although he admits it later. He denies it initially and then admits it later. That catalyzes everybody to go back to Kodiak. What is it called? Kodiak Valley.
Kodiak
KV.
Valley.
KV. Which is this supposed to be in Colorado? Is that where they're supposed to be? Denver area?
That's a good question.
I actually have no idea. But anyway, Kodiak Valley is a made up place. But anyway, but seems like it's a Denver area. And so then they go there, and it is for him this like, okay, we get the guys back and my sort of support network, as you said. And I think what is interesting about this is that both of those guys, his friends, Adam and Nick, have moved on in their lives. And as you said, Lou hasn't. And yet, to remain friends requires that they make certain sacrifices, namely that they're willing to continue to support him despite his kind of irresponsible behavior. I mean, getting into fights with people and so on. And that's ultimately what he wants. He wants them ultimately just to have his back for whatever he does. And I think this is actually an interesting and important observation about friendship, which is that to be a friend to someone is risky in a way. It carries with it certain risks because it's a commitment. And if your friend does something stupid, if you are a true friend to them, you have to support them, which may mean compromising yourself in other ways. It may mean getting beaten up. It may mean doing something you otherwise regard as immoral, but to help support them and because they've chosen this path. And I think that is really interesting. And I think the film is really leaning into that. And by showing, I mean, the Corddry character is hard to like in a lot of ways. I mean, he's a very caustic character. And, the other guys describe him as that asshole friend, right? He's like, you remember you have that asshole? He's our asshole. And like, but he's our asshole. It's interesting, right? It's interesting that like, they hate him in a way, but also they love him because he's theirs. And as a result, they owe him certain things, and they recognize that they owe him that, and that they haven't been good friends for him. But anyway, I just think that's interesting because I thinking for yourself, Mitchell, as you have these people who you knew in high school, which you're not really in contact with. I don't know if you would call them your friends, but it's hard. That part of what's difficult about maintaining these friendships over the years is maintaining that commitment to say, get that other person's back. And it's not just about being in contact and knowing what they, where they went on vacation that year. It's about being willing to say, if they need help, drop other aspects of your life and go and help them. And I think that is, if there's a lesson in the film, I think it's something along those lines of like, even if this guy sucks, if you're his friend, you gotta help him out.
Yeah, I think, and I wonder how much of it too is like specifically like this male friendship thing, because like I know like so with Lou, like Lou is such a scumbag, and like I know like I have friends who are like still like really good friends with a guy that they went to high school with, and like I see my friend and I'm like, you're cool, like you're a decent person, like your friend like sucks, like that dude is a piece of shit. And he's like, yeah, but like we grew up together. And I'm like, what? That doesn't translate to me of like, okay, well I still gotta be friends with them. But so I wonder, like, because, I'm somebody who didn't really have close friendships like that, like growing up, like how much there is like this bond that just kind of connects you to somebody. Cause like at the beginning of this movie, it seems like they're pretty disconnected. Like obviously Lou's like reaching out this huge cry for help with the suicide attempt, and like we see him calling both of those guys, and they see that he's calling them, and they're like, they don't pick up. They're like, I can't deal with this, like this is too much, he's too much for me. But they still have his phone number, like they still have his number in their phone. Like there still is obviously some sort of connection, some obligation to him. They go, like when the suicide attempt happens, they go to the hospital. And so I am curious. I don't know, the thing that I come back to a lot is this idea that like they're big. This is how we're going to make him feel better. This is how we're going to bring everything back together. We're going to go to Kodiak Valley. And for them, it's like it's such a place of nostalgia for them, but the nostalgia is for this weekend where one of them got the shit kicked out of him. Yeah. The other two weren't there for him at all. That one of them got broken up with. Like it's like this really interesting thing of like your nostalgic moment is for the high energy, the excitement of being there, but it also is this crucial moment where you saw that you needed your friends to have your back and they didn't. And like for the other guys, like you just let him get the shit kicked out of him because you were dealing with your own stuff. And that's really connected to what's going on in their lives right now. They're too busy dealing with their own stuff to have the time for this guy who's clearly really struggling.
Yes, it's actually turns out to be a quite dark moment. And maybe what we should reflect on in that is this impulse to escape our current situation and go back to a time when we think at least it was better, is actually an illusion, and that things are, we were always having troubles and life was always difficult.
And wherever you are.
Wherever you are, you're dealing with stuff.
Just take your baggage with you wherever you go.
Yeah, I mean, it is interesting that like when they go back in time, like they're, as you were saying earlier, Justin, like their first instinct is like, we have to do everything exactly the way that we did it before. We have to just relive the suffering. When it's like, I mean, you're back in time. Like, you're back in time. Like, what the hell is going on? But like, also, like, why not just start doing things differently? Why not, completely reshape your like, what are you trying to like maintain to get back to? And of course, the natural development there is they immediately, the plan is like, we have to do everything exactly the same. And then all three of them separately start going down different paths of like, actually, let me try and see if I can fix this and do it a different way and it'll feel better.
Right? I'm sorry, my bad. You guys are right. But if you're changing the fucking past, okay, then I'm changing the fucking past. All right? I fucking settled. No, Lou.
Okay, we're in the game. I like this.
I didn't change anything yet. I just didn't do it.
And if we're changing shit, you better be there at midnight to get my fucking back.
Done. I'll be there.
No, guys, come on, man, talk to me about this.
Fuck off.
Fuck!
I'll be back in a minute.
Where are you going?
I gotta go.
No, Adam, listen to me, please. Jenny Stedfire is not your fucking destiny, okay? She's just some girl you dated in high school, okay?
I know. I just got some emotions coming up. I got some feelings I gotta deal with. Just do it. I believe in you. You're awesome.
You know what? That's fine. Everybody just take off. I don't need to be born. I'll just go find the repairman myself and fix the time machine. Yeah, that's the dumbest thing I've said in a while.
John Cusack goes back in time and he plays, I love the way he responds to Jennifer because she's like bouncing around and she's really gorgeous. So he's like, whoa, but he's also like, I'm tired. Like, you're too much for me.
Yes.
Like he just like immediately feels like overwhelmed by her. But yet, like, I know that they were saying Great White Buffalo in the very beginning, when they first came to Kodiak Mountain. Great White Buffalo. But like, it's pretty clear as soon as he sees her that he doesn't really think she's the Great White Buffalo because he's like, like he's immediately exhausted by her. But yet he gets rejected. He thought he was going to reject her. He gets rejected and he's like doing rejection poetry. He's feeling it. And like he even says to Jacob, but Jacob's like, she is not your great, like, what the hell is going on? We know that she's not the one. Like, chill out. He's just like, I have a lot of feelings coming up. Like, it's like his like 40-year-old body is like, is put back into the 20-year-old hormonal body, and he's feeling the intensity of it all over again.
Well, the guy,
even despite himself.
The guy just got rejected twice in 24 hours on his clock. If you think about it, right? He just got broken up with by his current girlfriend, and then he gets broken up with by
Jennifer,
unsuspectingly by his previous girlfriend.
I guess that's right. So if you like, but
he's overwhelmed by. And he gets 70. I mean, he's in a vulnerable spot.
But he doesn't take any of that sort of, space. It feels like that he is, that he's gotten over the past 20 years and taken it to that moment. He's just like back being 18, writing his poetry.
I mean, one character that we haven't really talked too much about it is Jacob.
Yeah.
And Jacob gets more of a role in the second movie because he doesn't have that much to do here. In fact, actually, it's totally unclear why he's there. I mean, he's very funny and he works well comedically with the other guys in that he's very different from them. But I was curious if people had thoughts on Jacob and his character in this movie in particular.
I feel like he's primarily there as the audience surrogate, kind of to like ground us in the plot, because it allows the three of them to go off and like do their own kind of wild things, and he's kind of like the center to keep trying to pull us back to like, we have to actually like, we kind of have to get back to like the present, to our real lives, like whatever. But I do think that throwing him in, and I know from like reading about it that like it was kind of his idea for Jacob to be like Lou's son. And so like maybe there's like, a thing there where he wasn't as involved and then became more involved like through the process of maybe they just like Clark Duke and like the chemistry. I do like the stuff with Jacob and Lou plays really well, I think. And like they have a really good chemistry. I love the scene where they're going to have the threesome with the woman, and I think that that's a great moment in the movie's very interesting relationship with homosexuality, because it has like these gay panic moments, but then at the same time it takes somebody like Lou, who is ostensibly like the biggest sort of like buffoon of them, the guy that you would most think is, a bigot or whatever, like just on the surface. And he's the one who is coaching Jacob with his hand on how to be just the right amount of erect to not be too, not show that you're too eager, but also not show that you're not interested. And like that, like it's a really like surprisingly progressive relationship, I think, with some ideas that a lot of these kinds of movies have a lot more of a regressive relationship with. And so I think it's aged the movie in a way that surprisingly, I think, pulls off better. Like I'm very, I don't know if you guys feel the same way about that, but I'm always like surprised that the approach to homosexuality in this movie is a more nuanced than I would think of
yeah, I mean,
like this.
The other example of this is when they're getting in the hot tub.
Right.
And Lou, I think, is the instigator of like, he's like, we all get naked.
He's like, it's called male bonding.
Yeah. And
when
Jacob
doesn't
is initially like, what? But then, they all get in naked. Jacob's in his boxers, but still. And I actually was thinking this time that I hadn't remembered the movie for, this was 15 years ago when I saw it, but I was thinking maybe Lou's going to turn out to be gay. I mean, he's very comfortable with Jacob naked and so on, and then
he also makes the most gay jokes.
He makes a lot of gay jokes,
sometimes
which you might
like a
think,
red flag.
Exactly, but then and obviously they don't go that way in the film, but it could have very easily. I mean, the choice point would have been. I mean, he's very comfortable making light of the situations that he ends up in. Like, I mean, in particular, he makes a joke to Nick after Nick has passed out, after they have been forced to, basically been like forced to engage in a sex act, and he makes the cum on his face joke, and so he seems like perfectly like he's like, this is like just a funny thing like I'm doing, and but I was ready for them to just be like, oh, and his realization is that he's gay, which they didn't do, which is fine. But anyway, I do think that a certain part of the movie's complicated relationship to male bonding is that men in general have a difficult time being friends in a kind of platonic way. It's like it's either competitive or there's like this sexual thing that like can't get overcome, and then that's something that's like embedded in the film.
It's like the only love language they have for intimacy, or the only type of like way they have to express intimacy is like around sex, either by like we all get in the hot tub naked, that's how we're close, or by making jokes that then they have to like distance themselves from. It's like they don't know how to like just be intimate, in a platonic way.
Yeah, just like let's hug each other. That's like
or just
hard.
talk.
But that's just hard. Talking
is hard.
Generally hard for men.
Being
it is a
vulnerable.
thing. There's a certain degree of vulnerability.
So then there's like this, like I was remembering that 2010 was the year of no homo as well, right?
Right. So it's there. It's on the
it's on the surface. It's like we want to be friends. But like don't think something. But like I do love you. But like don't freak out. But like I love you.
Yeah, and I Love You Man was the year prior.
Yeah.
And so it's in the air. And again, this is an evergreen topic for heterosexual cis men to find ways of bonding with one another that isn't isn't compromising their heterosexuality. Men find this hard. Cis hetero men, cis hets, and it's one of these things that's like, I don't know. I think the movie is. I agree with you, Mitchell, that I think it's there are certain aspects of it that I definitely think have like aged well. I think it's still so much of its time for me, and that some of the homophobic jokes I think are like. They're definitely of its time, and they fit. It's a time capsule in that sense. But I also think the movie sometimes feels a little bit like, especially with the scene where the Karate Kid guy forces them to do the same. I mean, that does feel like now we're making a joke at the expense of, it's like we're making fun of homosexuality in a way which is like, I don't know.
Yeah, that's the point where it turns a little bit more to be and like, oh, okay, this is what I would have expected more of this movie to be, for sure.
Yeah. Did you? Okay, so can we just talk about Crispin Glover? So okay,
yes,
Crispin Glover is my favorite part of the film. He shows up and he's got no right arm. He's only got the left arm, and he's really rude and irritable, and he yells at them, and it's hilarious the way he throws their luggage off of the luggage cart and then holds out his hand for the tip. It's hilarious. I mean, that's the thing about Crispin Glover. I think he's an idiosyncratic actor who, there's a risk of, if you cast Crispin Glover, he's just gonna do whatever he wants. And it could throw your movie off because it could be he's in a totally different movie. Here it works perfectly because they integrate it into the film in a really lovely way. But just seeing then the Chekhov's gun, so to speak, of Crispin Glover is about to lose his arm. How is this going to happen? I was thinking of it as the subplot is how I lost my arm kind of a thing. And it's just so funny. Every time we go to him, he's juggling, he's doing like chainsaw juggling, ice sculpting.
Yeah.
Yeah. He's doing the
so
thing that you
funny.
most expect somebody who lost their arm in a horrible accident to do, but he's doing it like every other hour. Like he's getting stuck in an elevator. like I just love like it's basically like setting up like Final Destination style, like Rube Goldberg like designs for him to lose his arm, and then at the last second he does it. And like the excitement that Lou has every time of like, oh, he's about to lose it, he's gonna lose it. And then the moment where like it builds to where Lou's falling off the roof, and they're all, they got this like monkey chain of everybody holding on to everybody to try and save Lou's life. And Crispin Glover comes and he's holding them with his arm, and it's like, oh God, now this is the one where he's gonna lose it. Like it never gets old. It's such a good bit. Because like they could have just done it once, right? And like they do it like 4 different times, and it keeps getting funnier. And
oh my God,
it's my favorite thing about the entire movie. I think like it is such a smart bit, and I think that it plays into like the movie's sense of humor so often. The Great White Buffalo thing too, like it's got such like an absurd humor where like you're watching it and it's just like, this is nonsense, but it's like really intentional nonsense. It's not just throwing stuff randomly at the wall and like seeing what sticks. Like it really feels like it does have a wit to it. That's something like like a Deadpool kind of movie doesn't, where it's just like, let's be meta and like whatever for the sake of it and like zany. But like, I think that this movie's humor is really intelligent in a way that surprised me a lot when I saw it, and surprised me more and more the more that I would like go back and revisit it, just as like a weird nostalgia thing for what it meant for me at the time, and then realizing like, oh no, this actually like holds up well, and like I could comfortably show this to new people in my life and be like, this is a really good movie, and not be scared of like, this is a movie that I saw when I was younger and it means a lot to me, and I know it's not good, but you know, if you want to watch it, it's silly and dumb. Like, I think that something like the Crispin Glover thing is like, they're playing on a different kind of level than you would think for a movie like this. For a movie called Hot Tub Time Machine.
Oh shit, check this out. That's that fucking bellhop. I hate that guy. Oh, this must be where he loses the arm. Oh no.
I don't think we should tell him. This is gruesome.
Don't you dare fucking tell him. You screwed the time thing up.
It's brilliant. I mean, that as you mentioned, the writing of that bit is brilliant. It's set up perfectly, and it, you know, just to keep coming back to it. And Crispin Glover is so good as at every point of like, he's about to lose his arm, but he doesn't, and then denying that, you know, like when like Cusack has this interaction with him at one point where he's like, "You're gonna lose your arm, man," and he's like, "Yeah,
You're gonna lose your arm."
yeah." Like this dude just almost lost his arm twice at that point, and he's like, he doesn't. It's like he's so oblivious to it. It's great. It's so funny. Okay, I do have a question about this. As somebody who's now seen the movie many times, and we've got Hot Tub Time Machine 1. We've got Hot Tub Time Machine 2, which also references this thing, but does not explain it. Here's where we're going.
Cincinnati box.
The Cincinnati box.
What happened in Cincinnati?
Is there going to be a Hot Tub Time Machine 3, which explains it? And what do you think is in the Cincinnati box?
I think it's better if they don't explain it.
I definitely think it's better if they don't. Part of my, like, I think Hot Tub Time Machine 2 is like fine. And maybe that's part of my extreme fondness for Hot Tub Time Machine 1. But I think that one of the things that I brush up against with Hot Tub Time Machine 2 is like, instead of coming up with new stuff, they kind of like just play back a lot of the hits. So like the end of Hot Tub Time Machine 2, and maybe this is like the like unrated version or whatever, because I don't think it was in theaters, but it like ends with like John Cusack coming back in like a post-credit scene, and he's like, "We've got to go to Cincinnati," and so it's like setting up that like the third one would be them going to Cincinnati and like discovering it. But I agree that I think that it's one of those things, like I was saying, like the absurdity of them going back and forth in that moment of like the box in Cincinnati, and Nick busts out laughing, like, "You keep it in a box," like, and like we just don't understand what that is, so it really leaves it up to us. And Jacob's like, "Is it a fetus?" Like, I can't possibly imagine what it could be other than like a skull or like, you know, some weird bones or something. But it's probably not that. It's probably a lot more innocuous, but I think that it just sits with us in this way that it's, you know, it's never revealing what it is will never be as funny as watching them go back and forth about it with that kind of a reaction that Nick and Lou have to it, and like us not knowing what it is.
I think it's too so evocative of like when you have friends that you've had for forever, like there is a delightful shorthand that you can have with them. They know your history, they know every detail. And like it does sort of allow you to just pick up where you left off, just, you know, even if you haven't talked in 5 years, and they really get you. And also they know all your dirt, and there's so many, like they're like siblings, right? And like there's like things that you're like, we don't talk about that, you know, like it is very evocative of like when you've had friends that you've basically known since you were children. And sometimes you really there's certain things that I probably wouldn't want to. I have some Cincinnati's, I think, with some friends, so we don't touch it.
Well, and to that point, I think it helps hammer home that these are people with long, they've been through shit together, and that's a big part of what makes. I think just to bring it back to friendship, I mean, part of, as I was saying, friendship's a commitment. And there has to be reasons to make that commitment. And part of it is the shared history and having gone through stuff. Like, it's like people come back from war, like they've been through something together that they share with those people. That's hard to make, it's hard to relate to other people. But it's that specificity of we've done something that we can't really share with anyone else because it's so specific to us that bonds us uniquely as people. And that's the kind of thing that brings us together and could ground a kind of commitment to get your back later or whatever, to support you if you need it and that kind of thing. So I think the Cincinnati box is emblematic of that these guys have been through something together. Something, yeah.
Great White Buffalo is a good example of that too, where it's like, clearly, immediately it's something that is so like intrinsic to their friendship that they, repeat it like a mantra, and like it's so silly and strange to us, but like to them, like it just immediately, like, they're, after all this time, as you were saying, like they pick it right back up. And like I think that's a smart touch in the writing of finding these moments where it doesn't have to be like, hey, remember when we were teenagers and like we went through this thing, and like, giving like all these details of like, this is the backstory, those kind of conversations that characters have in movies where you're like, if I was friends with somebody for 20 years and experienced all this stuff, we wouldn't ever talk about it in a way where it's like, we're just giving the exposition to the audience of like explaining these things that you don't have to explain. You just say Great White Buffalo and everybody's like, yeah, Great White Buffalo, man.
And I think it's telling too that when they do that, Jacob's on the outside. He's not part of the friend group yet, but by the end of the movie, he is part of the friend group in a way.
Yeah, and it's also like when you have friends these men are certainly like that. Like with you love them, but you also, there are things about them because you know them so fully, is full of people that drive you freaking crazy. And the Cincinnati thing, something happened where Adam did something selfish, right? And they're like, it's always the same story, just like and like when you have a friend that you see them so completely, you know all their flaws. There are certain things, they're not perfect people, and there's also things that drive you crazy about them sometimes in certain situations. And it does often happen on trips. For my college friends, we, for some reason, and like, even though we went to school in Connecticut, the thing to do senior week was to go to Myrtle Beach. We were so sick of each other by that week. That week sucked. We were all like at each other's throats, really. Like, because I feel like we had spent 4 very intimate years together and we love each other, but like we were not supposed to spend time in that like shitty. It was like the hotel room. You have a
Myrtle Beach box, right?
I burned it after Texas after I went home. But like, I could have a Myrtle Beach box. Everybody was so grumpy, but it was like in the setup, the little like condo setup was just like the one that they had in the Kodiak. I was thinking about Myrtle a lot actually for this movie. One of my friends, like, he's probably gonna listen to this, so hello. Was like, I'm going to break up with my girlfriend, but not until after Myrtle. So then they were just like on the precipice of breaking up for a whole week.
Limbo.
Yes. It's terrible.
That's tough, man.
It is like, there's something really specific about that closeness. Like, even when you're in like a relationship with somebody, when you like move in together and like it becomes that thing where like, so in depth, like the things that you can't stand about them and the things that you love about them, and like ultimately the love outweighs anything. But like sometimes you're talking to a friend and you're complaining about the things you can't stand, and your friend's like, oh yeah, just leave that, like what are you doing in that relationship? And it's like, no, you don't get to fucking say that, like that's my partner, bro, like what are you talking about?
No, I love them. I just like, why do they wash the dishes that way? It's fucking insane.
Exactly. Exactly.
You're unbelievable. Hey, Nick, can I ask you a question?
Yes.
Does this seem like it's all about Adam again?
Yeah, just like Cincinnati.
What?
You gonna bring that up?
We said we weren't gonna talk about Cincinnati ever, okay? Is this why you have that shoebox in your closet that says Cincinnati?
Yeah?
What? That's fucking admissible!
You keep it in the closet?
What was I supposed to do with it? You can't bury those things.
You wrote Cincinnati on it?
How do I know which one it's supposed to be?
Is it a fetus?
My friends are ridiculous.
Why are we still talking about this, okay? We said we would never talk about that. By the way, where does it say in the fucking friendship handbook that you are the only one who's allowed any fucking problems?
It's a good movie about friendship, and I totally I find I've always been a slightly as the kind of guy who's adjacent to the friend group.
Do you feel yourself? You feel like you're a Jacob?
I'm a Jacob. I think that's true.
All your friends are like whispering,
"Great White Buffalo,"
and you're like, "What's going on?"
No, yeah. Okay, wait. Let's go through it. Which character are you from the movie? So you're right. I'm the Jacob. Laura, which character are you from the movie?
Oh God, I have to think about it.
Mitchell, which character are you from the movie?
I mean, I think I think I probably would still ultimately be the Adam. I think I get in my feels a bit. I think that I have a kind of complacency to me that allows me to always feel like, oh, it would be better if I could just say something, do something, but I probably won't.
I might be a Nick.
Yeah.
Like, not because
you've given up your music career.
No, but I think like I have a group of friends from college in particular that, and high school too, who are passionate people who have all like followed their paths, and not that like, so they're not, Lou's or Adams either, but they're kind of like, are you good? Like you know, like I'm like the housewife. Like I'm like,
I do. The thing that I love about Nick is that like they go back in time, and like he's obviously dealing with a lot of stuff. Like he's sort of become like a doormat in in the present day. But he goes back and he just like he misses his wife, and like he comes he comes across these things where he's like, okay, I can like have more assurance in myself. Like I've found a better sense of like self-efficacy, but like I do, like he's still going through it, and like he's still just mostly like hurt by his wife in the present day, and he wants to get back to the present day to like work the shit out. Like I mean I think one of the funniest moments of the movie is him calling his wife as a child and hounding her for cheating on him, and the dad picks up and he's like, hang up the phone, Jerry.
It doesn't concern you.
And then when they get back to the present day, and she's like, I told you about that phone call I got, that wrong call I got when I was a kid. Like I would never cheat.
Oh my God. Yeah, that is terrible. Super funny. I mean, Craig Robinson is hilarious, and he gets a few sort of Craig Robinson flourishes. He gets to look lines directly at the camera.
Yeah. Which is a good bit, which apparently he came up with on his own, which is so good. It feels like so crucial to the movie. I do think, talking about like the great writing elements for how much these guys feel like they've known each other for so long, the performances really do like pull that together a lot, which is nice, because I remember seeing it too. Like I was a really huge John Cusack fan. I mean, I still am, but like even at the time when it came out, like I was a huge John Cusack fan from his 80s movies, from High Fidelity and Grosse Point Blank and all that stuff. And I remember thinking like, oh, isn't he a little bit too like highfalutin to be in like a raunch comedy like this? And he really integrates well into it with the guys. Like it doesn't feel like it's, I mean, like something like maybe Jason Statham in Spy is like an example of like a guy who like is intentionally being put into the movie to be portrayed as like an outsider to the movie in a sense. And like this, it doesn't feel like he really does have that kinship with Cordry and Robinson, who are guys who you would expect to see in a movie together, right? But I think that the three of them do genuinely feel from the jump like these guys who have had this relationship for all of these years, and all of those ebbs and flows and weird love and strong hatreds towards each other.
I totally agree, and I think it works in part because they're all really different, and their comedic stylings are very different. And Cusack is funny, but in a much more subdued way than Craig Robinson and Rob Corddry. And Corddry's turned up to 11, and he's having he's having a blast, and where his character ends up is actually it's super funny. I mean, the whole idea of like he got to the two things he wanted to do was invent Google and be in Motley Crue.
I love that too, because like the way that he's introduced, and like the way that he is, that crassness to him, like you would expect him to like get some sort of comeuppance, but like he kind of just gets everything that he wants. Like he's the one who like fully takes advantage of the opportunity to go back in time, and he's like, yeah, I'm staying, and like I'm staying to like because I feel more at home here, and like that's something for the guy who out of all of them is the one who never grew up, but also like he only changes a couple things, and it's like I'm gonna invent Google and I'm gonna be Motley Crue.
Yeah, I mean, I guess, yeah, and then Nick becomes like a famous recording artist mainly because he, stole the song.
Yeah, that's one of the
Of all
best
these
bits
people.
of Hot Tub 2 is him
Yes.
stealing all the songs and then like doing
Yes.
the music videos and stuff of him in them.
Those are
Lisa
very funny.
Loeb.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Laura's favorite is Lisa Loeb because
Yeah.
Lisa Loeb went to her high
And
school.
he just
so-
does the same, like he does like the exact same music video, but just with him in it. It's like that's a really funny bit in the second one.
Yeah, I do like that. And he can't remember the lyrics. Laura was pointing this out to me because I don't know any Lisa Loeb lyrics.
Yeah, I'll tell you, he doesn't talk about putting on lotion and glistening in the sun.
I don't
That's
know.
not the real lyrics, Justin.
But what are you gonna do?
Band would you put yourself in? If
Me?
if you pulled a Lou.
Ooh.
Motley Lou.
The
What would
tricky, the tricky thing is like you don't want to be in a band that's too big because then you have to, you have all the responsibility of like you've got to go on tour all the time and stuff. I want to be in like a mid-level band.
Okay.
I want to not be in Metallica,
Oh, you don't want to be in Metallica,
No,
but
I
there'd
wanna-
be so much drama.
I want to be in. I would want to be in, and I want to be in a band that like only has like 4 or 5 albums. I don't know. Maybe I'd want to be in like. I mean, of bands of music that I really like, of course, I'd want to be in Radiohead, but that's not gonna. That would be a big commitment. So.
Okay, I thought you were gonna say Rush or something like
Rush.
You
Oh,
Speaking of
yeah.
gotta do a lot of reunion tours and stuff.
Slapping the
though.
bass.
Yeah.
Mitchell, do you have a band you would want to insert yourself into?
I mean, like Talking Heads would just be fun, right? Like, I mean,
yeah,
that
it's
would-
good
that would
and
be a
it's
blast.
truncated. It's just as that.
What if they made
I don't know.
a-
I mean, I'm not a.
Okay.
No, go ahead, Mitchell.
I was gonna make a stupid joke about what if they made a movie where the Beatles didn't exist and you wrote all the Beatles.
I kind of like that movie, but I made Laura.
We
watch
don't talk
it.
about yesterday. In
We
this
don't.
house.
Yeah,
Sorry, but
Laura, you would put yourself. You would be Lisa Loeb, right?
No, I don't think I would be in a band. I don't care like about music that much, but I would like they'd be like. I think if they did a Hot Tub Time Machine with Laura's character, I would be in Titanic.
Oh, you would be Kate Winslet.
Yeah.
Or you would be you'd be the old lady. Old
How
Kate
dare you?
Winslet.
How dare you? No,
You'd be wearing the
this
jewel
is my
of the,
Hot Tub
of
Time
the-
Machine fantasy. I'm gonna be. I'm Rose.
I don't know when the hot tub time machine stuff in technology gets invented. Maybe it gets invented in like when you're old. Mitchell, thank you so much for being here. And so you are a senior editor for Letterboxd. You work on the Letterboxd podcast and you also write for Letterboxd. So tell us about Letterboxd. And I mean, we're big fans of Letterboxd, but the audience may want to hear a little bit about what Letterboxd is.
Yeah, totally. Letterboxd, if you're not familiar, is like a social media network for movie lovers. It's a app website where you can get on and log, like keep a diary of movies you're watching. You can write reviews if you'd like. You don't have to. You can make really cool lists, stuff like that. I think for the biggest thing for me for Letterboxd as a user before I started working there, is like I think that we try to just really build like a community of people who love movies. I've met friends like on Letterboxd in a way that like I haven't on other social media sites. I think that it is like a really nourishing community. There's a lot of discourse about one-liner Letterboxd reviews or the death of criticism, but like there's really good criticism on Letterboxd. Like people write really solid, articulate stuff on there too. So you can kind of like make the Letterboxd experience what you want to make of it. And then kind of more recently, they opened up doing like editorial kind of stuff, like interviews with filmmakers, writing about older movies, writing about getting into the craft of movies, etc. That's where I came in. I run that section of the site with our editor-in-chief Gemma. And then we're kind of on a break on the podcast, figuring out what makes the most sense to keep doing with the podcast. But the podcast, very similar sort of setup, bringing people on to just talk about movies. It's very much just nourishing people's love of movies. And I hope we're successful in doing that. I think that we are. I have a good time over there. So,
I mean, I can second that it's very successful. It's my favorite app to use on my phone, and it really is a wonderful. I'm a patron, and I've been a patron for a long time. But I feel like it just is like it's a joy to be on Letterboxd, and I follow mostly people who write relatively long form. I mean, it would be medium form reviews, but that's long for Letterboxd. And I find it just I read people and I log, try to review. I use the site as a way of logging my thoughts on a movie, and I for a while was trying to write a review for every movie I saw, which turned out to be I wasn't able to follow through on that.
Yeah.
It's very difficult. But I found the process of writing, I think of them as capsule reviews, right? Like reviews that aren't 1,000 and 1,500 words. They're maybe closer to 500-800 words. And that length is actually, which wouldn't be enough, I think, maybe for an actual publication, but it's sort of perfect for, you can knock it out in 30 minutes. And that kind of thing, having to focus and do that after watching a movie it was rewarding in a way. And then reading other people who've similarly taken the time to seriously think through a movie and craft something. And they're not professionals. I mean, many of them. I mean, I follow some professional critics, but mostly just follow amateur writers and who have a lot of insight, like really, really wonderful insights. And then the other thing that's really beneficial of it is for people, I'm just now advertising Letterboxd, but I truly do love the app, is just logging the diary of your movies. Is just, before Letterboxd existed, I was using a notes app to log my movies so that I could remember what I saw. And then I just imported all that into When Letterboxd came around, I was like, oh, this is exactly what I needed, because it interfaces with IMDb and TMD and all that. I was like, great, I'm going to just put all that in here, and it is really wonderful. So, Mitchell, we are grateful for having you. Thank you so much for being here. Also, by the way, do you want to put out your social media stuff? So Letterboxd is LETTERBOXD. And you can find the app everywhere you can get apps. And Mitchell, where are you most active on social media?
Yeah, I regrettably still Twitter. It's the place that I've found that I am most comfortable using. I'm not a big social media person, but I'm on Twitter, so you can follow me there at @itismitchell. If people want to follow me on Letterboxd, it's just Mitchell over there. Yeah.
Excellent. And thank you, Mitchell, again for being here. It was a real pleasure. And we don't talk enough about comedies on this podcast. We're typically doing very dour, serious films. Like previously, we did Dogville, the assassination of Jesse James. I mean, it was like real downer
Hot Tub Time Machine, triple feature.
Doing
right
Hot Tub Time Machine was
Thank
great.
you. Thank you. This is a good change of pace.
Change of pace. And speaking of that, so we are at CowsPod on Twitter. You can follow us on the web at cowspod.com. And in 2 weeks, we'll be talking to Noah Gittell about Bull Durham.
Baseball book.
Yes, yeah. Noah has his new baseball book coming out, so we're going to be talking to him about that. And so see you guys then. Bye.
Let's get it started in here. And the bass keep running, running, and 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 running, running. In this context, there's no disrespect. So when I bust my rhyme, you break your neck. We got 5 minutes for us to disconnect from all intellect, collect the rhythm effect. So lose your inhibition, follow your intuition, free your inner soul and break away from tradition. Cause when we beat out, girls putting the heat out. You wouldn't believe how we wild shit out. Burn it till it's burned out, turn it till it's turned out. Act up from northwest, east, south.